and action. Hey girl, how y'all doing? Today we're gonna briefly go over, I'm gonna wrap up the whole cycle syncing stuff. So last few vlogs I've been talking about that because that's been a big part of my life. There's one thing I want to touch on, and then I'm probably just gonna end up making a separate YouTube video for it because I want to. Next, I'm gonna go over my findings and discoverings, which is net total energy in the body, energy flow, blah, blah, blah. And then I've been having some new business ideas and I've been having stuff going on. I'm busy. So I want to briefly talk about that. And I haven't been doing an intro, so I'm gonna do an intro. Hello. If this is your first time to my channel, hello. My name is Tatiana Barlow. I quit my 9-to-5 at the beginning of this year, and I've been documenting the journey. The last 5 years or so, I have been bettering myself, my life. I ended up on this whole journey that I didn't realize I was going on, and I've picked up a lot of new information and education along the way, and I love to come here and share with you all what I have been learning. So, without further ado, we're gonna start with the cycle syncing stuff. Particularly, I want to talk about the luteal phase. So, I just exited the luteal phase. Yes, we are entering follicular today. Anyways, something very interesting. So I actually just made a TikTok about, I just made a TikTok about it, but I still want to mention it in my vlog of how I was able to completely change or improve my luteal symptoms. We want to call them symptoms. I don't really like to use those words, but symptoms. And it really came down to food. Just spoiling the plot. It really came down to food. So basically, I had this thought process, I had this hypothesis of, I ended up doing about net total energy. So I was like, why is it that my body has so little energy, long story short, and such negative thoughts, when negative thoughts are not my default, this is not something I really experience, what's going on? And I've also been noticing trends, like softly been noticing the trend of the correlation between the net total energy in my body and my thoughts. Why is my net energy so low? Why are my thoughts so negative? Why would I feel so hopeless when I'm typically a person with very positive thoughts and just a completely different life than what I was experiencing in my luteal phase? And I was like, before, which you heard me on here before in like the last vlogs, I was like, I want to cater to this phase and understanding, you know, that this is something that kind of comes with it and working with it and stuff. But I was still experimenting, still paying attention, because I was like, I have such a hard time believing that I need to suffer for about 3 to 5 days every single month. I don't believe in suffering, at least for myself. I do not believe that I have to suffer. I firmly don't believe that. I firmly do not believe that my soul would incarnate here and that I have to deal with something like feeling like complete and utter shit for a week out of every single month. That doesn't make any sense to me. And I know that my body is always on my team. My body is always supporting me, and it's always wanting me to perform at the most optimal level, and that everything that's going on with it is information for me at a whole body level. And so I'm like, I don't want this timer in my face. It's distracting me. This situation of having these terrible thoughts or whatever every single month, this is also information. There's something that my body needs that it's lacking. And that's why, like I said, why I wanted to really focus on energy, because I'm aware that the luteal phase has a higher metabolic rate, needs more energy, blah, 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 long story short. And I also know that I typically don't consume a lot of carbs, not intentionally, it's just what happened. I really like to make sure I get in my macros and my fiber, and my carbs out of my macros tends to be the one that falls a little short unintentionally. And I think that is just even more highlighted in my luteal phase. That was my thought process, right? And then I was also thinking about how the last luteal phases, I allowed myself to indulge during the last 3 to 5 days, more like 3, but the last 3 to 5 days, I was like, all right, go ahead and be a hermit. This is just go within for the last 3 days of the month, or like whatever, right? That was how I was handling it before. And I thought this time about, and I was also like, Well, then what was the issue then? Because I had clearly more carbs and sugar during that hermit phase because that's what I was doing. So I was like, what is the problem? And so then it led me to a deep dive into sugar and glucose in particular. I'm like, why exactly is glucose such a hot commodity? I know I've talked to you all about how I've significantly decreased my sugar intake over the last however many years. I have a low glycemic diet, blah, blah, blah. But I had yet to really do a serious deep dive into glucose and why she's such a hot commodity. Like, she's so needed and it's the brain's easiest fuel source and this, that, and the third. But like, she's also over here like, people are losing toes and toe beans and it's just like, it's such a problem. So that really started to, then I did a little deep dive. And long story short, it comes down to the glucose spike, which you may already know. But I heard like you don't want to spike your glucose, but I didn't really know why until I realized that a glucose spike is the same as any other spike out of nowhere, like all of a sudden you're giving your body a bunch of sodium, or all of a sudden your body's put in an extremely cold place or an extremely hot place, or all of a sudden. Our bodies have a very narrow range it likes everything to be maintained at. Homeostasis, a specific temperature, a specific water amount, a sodium concentration, a specific potassium, a specific for everything. Glucose is no different from that. And when we dump a bunch of glucose in there at one time, our body has to do something about that. And that requires energy. And in your luteal phase, when for myself, let me speak for myself. In my luteal phase, when my body is already lower on reserves, it's using more energy, and then I clearly was already under just with the low carb intake or whatever. It's not gonna put that energy towards me having positive thoughts. It's gonna put that energy to where it needs and where it's needed most. And so I had the hypothesis that basically if I consumed more sugar and more carbs during my luteal phase, but not in a way that caused any spikes, just specifically in a way that was stable, then I should see a decrease in the negative experiences that I was having during the luteal phase, the negative symptoms. I should see a decline in that, right? That was my little hypothesis. And at the end of the day, this was the best luteal phase I've had by far. In fact, on the second or third day, one of those days that I was early in it, I literally had so much energy. I got so much done. So much more done that I didn't plan on doing because I already like catered. Wait, it wasn't the early part of the luteal phase. It was one of the first or second days of the last 5. I lied in that TikTok. But that's why I was so fascinated by it, is because I was at the part of my luteal phase where normally it would feel the worst, and I had so much energy. I had ovulation type energy. Yup, I had ovulation. Now I could, obviously I knew I wasn't ovulating. I, still could feel some of the joint sensitivity, and I could still feel some of the other nuances that come with the luteal phase along with the sleep thing. I didn't experiment with the sleep stuff this time. I wanted to do one variable at a time, test one variable at a time. But, I did not get mopped with negative thoughts during this luteal phase. I had energy during this luteal phase all the way through. And I am just fascinated how simply making sure that my glucose didn't spike. Now, I had more of my chickpea pasta. I had more of my plantains. I had more, there was something else. I had more like bread. I had this like grain bread or whatever that I'll have with my salads and stuff. And then I think I had some more berries and seeds, but really my focus was on like the protein pasta and the bread and stuff. 10 out of 10 experience, 10 out of 10 experience. So I did want to share that because that was really cool. And it's so nice. I just love when my hypotheses are supported. I eat it up. So moving forward, I'm going to continue with having my regular diet during my luteal phase, except upping the carbs. I need to up my carbs in general in life. So this was another just lesson for that of stop doing that crap. And I already knew I was doing that crap. Stop doing that crap. And then up it a little more during the luteal phase. And so, yeah, that was really cool. I've been really strict on making sure if I do consume sugar or something high in sugar, I prime my tummy with that fiber salad or something, all that good stuff. So that was really cool. And then onto this whole net total energy thing. And what are we looking like on time? So I want to make sure the camera doesn't turn off. If you've been here, then you know. I have been really loving looking at my system as a whole. Not that I wasn't already doing that, but this cycle syncing stuff has made it even more clear. And looking at my body as the overall energy that I have. Because my body's not over here like, oh, I have this much energy for this, and this is reserved for thoughts, and this much energy is reserved for exercise and physical activity, and this much energy is reserved for for metabolic processes, and this is for tissue repair and skin. That's not how it works. Our bodies have, we bring in the energy via our food. That's our gasoline. That's us gassing up the car. And then it decides, it allocates where it's putting stuff and using stuff and whatever. And it's in an order of importance. What matters most, what's most important to the body or whatever. And what's been really highlighted to me is the whole negative thoughts, positive thoughts thing. And I have definitely been noticing, cycle stuff aside, a correlation between my net total energy in my body and the types of thoughts that I'm having and the types of experiences that I'm having is greatly influenced by all the things they tell us about our rest and our food and all of that. And so I've been looking at everything as a whole system. It's kind of like how for a while I've been looking at everything that my body tells me as information. I guess that really falls into the same bucket. It's the same concept. You know, a breakout or a rash from a product or a reaction, whatever, on our bodies in any individual place is not always a localized thing. It's just the way our body is telling us, hey, something's going on. I don't even want to say something's wrong, just something's going on, you know? And I don't look at things in my body, let's say my body's doing something or thinking something that I don't like. I don't approach it and look at it as I need to fix this and this is wrong. It's very much, this is information. What is going on doesn't mean I'm just like, oh, I love everything that happens. Like, no, it's still very much like, but my body's trying to tell me something. That's why I got more serious about not using fragrances and fragrant products like that. There's no end to that sentence. I was just trying to say like that. It's just a vocal inflection threw me off. I don't know if it threw you off, but that's why I stopped using the synthetic fragrances. I still use fragrant products, but I switched them out because I get a reaction to certain ones that are particularly strong. And I was like, honestly, I bet you that all of these are having a negative impact on my body, but these ones, because they're particularly strong, are giving a stronger reaction than I actually see. But I don't think my body likes any of this synthetic stuff, period. It is telling me this is not good for my system. Is it not? Yes, it's not good for my skin, sure, but I feel like the skin is the messenger in something like that. It's the messenger of like, hey, something's coming in that's not good. It's first contact. It was something put directly on the skin. But at the end of the day, phthalates and toxins are not good for my entire system. It's not just not good for my skin. It's not good for me. And so, yeah, girl, yeah. That's how I've been looking at that type of stuff of just, it's like I told you when so much was going on and I had a little breakout, instead of getting mad or upset, like, why am my skin breaking out right now? I just gotta go be in front of people. Like, this is not the time. I was very like, whoa, I see, hey, and I see you're a little overwhelmed. Let's take care of you type of thing. Like, I just try to keep my vessel as optimal as possible because it impacts every aspect of my life. And yeah, girl, it's like, what type of gas are you putting in the car? You know what I mean? Anyways, girl, really excited for some new business ideas and video ideas I have coming up. I do want to post some YouTube videos outside of vlogs where I just talk about some of these concepts and break them down. And I feel like I'm in a space right now where I'm ready. I'm ready for all the stuff that I've been calling and all the stuff that I've been saying I want to do and all the stuff that I've been saying I'm going to do. I'm in the space of doing right now. We're exiting the winter. What's funny is we're actually not exiting the winter. We're literally going into January. But with that being said, we're in a good space. I'm in a good space. I still feel very confident. I still feel very confident in myself. We're exiting the holiday season. We're going to the new year. I'm feeling very optimistic. That's the word. That's all for today, girl. I will see you next week. Because by the time this goes up, we'll be back on to our regular scheduled programming. So I'll see you next week. And have a good day, girl.